What's up, guys? It's your boy Jamaica here, coming at you with another tournament recap for Season 7, Week 9. Thursday tournament was won by Bant Midrange, piloted by Briar Moss. Another new Briar Moss brew. He's been playing it for a little bit with kind of a way to, I think we talked on the podcast of it, which is in the description. There's a link down there for episode 2. But we talked about, Selvala and things like that. And, I don't know, he's been really interested in Selvala decks, and paired with a couple other really utility sort of cards to make Zavala good for the most part. And this is what he got, and he finally got a win. You know, it's been a while, but he's got a win. It's actually makes 4 different archetypes that Briar Moss has actually won with this season, which is pretty impressive. So let's just start going for the mana base here. 24 lands, Evolving Wilds, so some Seaside Citadels down here. Forest, islands, and then 3 plains. It's more of a blue-green deck. The white, you don't really need to the end game, really. There's only a turn 3 white spell you really want to cast in certain matchups, but really it's super necessary. So, more of a blue-green sort of slanted mana base. 6 mana elves here, Avon's Pilgrim and Findorn Elves. Pilgrim's a little more useful, like I said, because you don't really want a ton of planes in this deck, so this just makes white mana for free, almost. And then extra Findorn Elves, just because you want to really just ramp up into your 5 and 6 drops rather. Timing need, there's only 2 targets for timing need. One is Selvala here, the other is Yosei the Morningstar, which we'll get to in a second. But tutors are good, you know, 2 mana, especially 2 mana tutors are really good. When your deck is centered around it versus the early to mid game when you get a Selvala versus the late game where you get a Yosei, which is kind of a lock piece in this deck. It's pretty good, so it's always necessary. Repeal and Power Sink are sort of just early interaction spells. Repeal is actually doesn't see a lot of play, but zombies tends to make a lot of tokens, so this is a 1 mana swords. 1 mana plow, draw a card, you know, that's pretty good. And Power Sink, just a little catch all. You have a lot of mana in this deck, so you can definitely Power Sink people out of some certain situations. A single Vizier Tumbling Sands is pretty interesting. A lot of this deck is around untapping sort of thing, so kind of making use of Selvala more and more is really good. So you can just play this as a 1/3. You know, it's not a terrible blocker. Or you cycle it and you get another activation of Selvala. Same with the Bounding Grasses, another good blocker, and does little taps or untaps, so you could use it to kind of fog a creature, or you could use it to push through your creatures, things like that. Rock Swarmlunk is a pretty awesome reason to be in Bant. 3/4 lifelink, really good against all the aggro decks like zombies or mono red, things like that. If you get slams to turn 3 against an aggro deck, it should be pretty decent for the most part. Selvala, let's talk about Selvala a second. Parlay is a really interesting mechanic. You basically give your opponent a card in exchange for mana and life. So how to really abuse that? I think Briar Moss used the ability to just constantly untap with it and retap it a bunch of times, and make it so that his top game is way better than yours in terms of the end game part. So it's interesting. It's an interesting sort of trade off. Everyone kind of benefits, but he benefits just a little more, and that's really the key of this deck here. Cloud Blazer, you can't really play a band deck or some sort of blue-white deck without Cloud Blazer or anything. Especially he's really good in this deck. Kind of just bridges the gap between your mid and late game. Prophet Kruvix, if you ever untap the Prophet Kruvix, you could realize how broken this card is. Really good with Selvala, it keeps untapping. Making flash threats is just really good in general. Keeping up mana all the time for power sinks and big repeals, things like that. It's this card's just really good. It seems like a do nothing, but once you untap, you kind of start winning. Yosei is the end game here. I've been also dabbling in Yosei decks, and he borrowed some tech from me from Cackling Counterpart. So if you copy a Yosei with Cackling Counterpart, you have to choose one, either the token you make or the original Yosei, and one of them dies, and you get the trigger from the Yosei. And that's kind of the end game for the most part. It's just doing this over and over. Since you're at 6 mana, you might as well get 7 mana for the flashback part of it. So it's at least 3 activations you can get off this. Pretty neat. And a single Treasure Cruise is kind of draw extra cards when you need it. Not a ton of card draw in this deck. Other than Selvala, if you're going to call that card draw. It is. Actually, it really is card draw. Sideboard here. Fire Furnace is the Graveyard Haven choice. Voidstone Gargoyle is interesting. I guess there's a lot of decks that just have like a single use card, like Dragonstorm, or sometimes it's kind of good against those like lesser removal decks. I guess it can be good against like the blink decks. You can play say like Magister or Worth. They can't really cast it, things like that. And also it shuts down like activated abilities, which is also important. Not really sure what activated abilities you're actually really afraid of right now, but it's there. Light of Day for the Zombie X 3 Light of Days, in fact. You get this out on turn 3, it's pretty good in the deck. Gain save for the blue decks. Altered Ego, I think it's also for control. Once you resolve a threat, you want to keep making either the same threat or multiple threats. So just having this uncounterable is really good. Extra Rocks Worms for the aggro matchups here. Single Naturalize for a disenchant style effect. Yeah, it's just pretty interesting deck. I love me a Yosei deck, so I'm down for that. Yosei Cackling Counterpart, it's one of my favorite interactions this season. So shout out to Briar Moss. If you want to check out the other decks from this tournament, check the description below. There's a link. Thank you guys for watching. Take care.